What would make this an extraordinary conversation for you today?
Learning more about the LSAT, how to really dissect an argument and logical reasoning, and just understand how one should approach the question and trying to find that gap that is needed to kind of tackle the question. So,
yeah, sure. So, how long have you been studying for?
I've been studying for about a year, so I'm familiar with the LSAT itself.
Good, good, fantastic.
Yeah, but I feel it's just needing to get faster at finding those gaps and being faster in logical reasoning.
Sure. Now, when you have trouble with an argument, what does your review process look like?
So it's before checking the answers and stuff, I try to really dissect what was my thinking of approaching the questions and how did I react to a certain answer choice. And after I check the answers, I see what made me really choose that answer choice and why did I choose it, and whether it was right or wrong.
Good, good. So you're a lot of analysis, you're thinking through your thought process, that's all good. One additional thing I want you to add on is paraphrasing the stimulus in logical reasoning, for example. Mm-hmm. Putting it in your own words, either writing it out or talking about it with a friend or a coach or a tutor or somebody in a study group perhaps, but you've got to get it out of your head. Mm-hmm. The thing is, when you're in your head, it's too easy to just say, I get it now, and then you move on without taking the time to really thoroughly understand it. Mm-hmm. It's harder, it's slower, it's not always fun, but it's really important because that's how you prove to yourself that you understand it now, so you can avoid making the same mistake again. Mm-hmm. Okay. Those tougher questions, they're going to have more complex methods of reasoning. They're going to have more difficult topics as well, maybe more difficult vocabulary. But you've got to slow down and take the time to make sure you understand it. Mm-hmm. Too often students they don't understand the stimulus. They jump into the choices hoping that will clear things up. But that only really further complicates things because the choices only make sense in the context of the stimulus.
Right. Mm-hmm. So would you say that it's better to slow down when I'm trying to use this method it's going to be slow, like you said. So it's more like trying to really understand what I'm doing, or it's would you say that I'm in the right path of reviewing it and analyzing it? It's just an additional step would be teaching it to someone else. That way my brain understands it more out of my head, like you said.
It is an additional step, and it will also slow you down. If you integrate this into your review process, you're not going to be able to cover as many questions, but that's okay. I'd rather you cover fewer questions in more depth than more questions only on a surface level. This is slowing down to speed up later.
Right. Okay. Sounds good.
You can also think about what are the different parts of the argument, the conclusion, the evidence, the subconclusion, filler, background information, counter premises. Not every argument will involve all of these things, of course, but you want to get used to seeing the role that different statements play in the stimulus.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you think that will help me find more because most of these arguments are flawed. So will that help me really understand more, flaws in particular, what the question is trying to kind of try to persuade me to think?
It will certainly help. Yeah, because as you said, most arguments contain a gap of some kind, but not every question is a flaw question, of course. Many of them are not. There's strength in, there's weak in, necessary assumption, sufficient assumption, but all of those will contain a gap of some kind. And so you could actually analyze an argument regardless of its question type. And you could see for a weakened question, how could you twist things a little bit to make it into a flaw question? Same for necessary assumption. It's really about whether you're giving the speaker of the argument the benefit of the doubt or not. If it's a flaw question, we're saying that they failed to consider something. But for a necessary assumption question, we're saying they simply did not bother to explicitly state underlying assumptions, which in a way are also gaps based on how you frame them.
Okay. In regards to trying to change the topic here, in regards to logical reasoning, logic games. I feel that the certain games that I have trouble with is the ones that are mostly like broad based, like which of the following must be true, when all the questions are like that. And would you say that for those question types, I have to rely more on my diagram as opposed to like filler question type, like if blank and blank is provided, then which of the following must be true?
Yeah, I mean, the global ones are going to be more difficult and they're going to require the use of your previous diagrams.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, you might want to save them for last, because that way you have a baseline of hypothetical scenarios to draw upon to solve the more global general questions later.
Okay. That makes sense. And for reading comp, I think that how does one stay active in the reading? Because it's mostly like trying to like through all these details and just trying to like keep up with the details could be a little complicated.
Yeah, well, first off, you've got to get interested, or at least pretend to be interested, until it becomes real. Fake it till you make it. And it also involves caricaturing or exaggerating different viewpoints in the passage to make them more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Again, paraphrasing can also be useful here. There are certain key points where the author of the passage will summarize either their own viewpoint or the different viewpoints they are presenting in the passage. And so again, to prove to yourself that you thoroughly understand it, could you paraphrase it, put it in your own words, or explain to someone else?
Okay. All right.
And focusing primarily on the viewpoints, not the details. The details you can always go back for later, but initially you got to walk away with the main idea, and that will help you knock out typically a couple of the more general questions like main idea, primary purpose, passage organization, best title, tone, etc.
Okay. Sounds good.
Great, Eduardo. What other questions do you have for me?
For these, I haven't really trouble with these weakening questions. Which is why I feel I'm better with strengthening questions. For weakened questions, what would be the way to kind of like approach them?
Well, how do you approach them right now?
Just trying to like read the stimulus and trying to find the gap in between. And when I read the question, I ask myself, okay, how does this? I go back to the stimulus and try to see how could I improve it. But I don't know if that is wasting my time. Instead of just reading the answer choice and trying to fill in the gap or the how to weaken it. I mean.
Right. So the question is really comes down to, are you prephrasing or not? Are you making a prediction or not? So you read the stimulus, as you said, the arguments, they contain gaps, and weakened questions, they always do, of course. And you're looking to make the conclusion even less likely given the evidence. And there are a couple of different major ways you can weaken arguments. And so part of reading actively does mean prephrasing or predicting along one of these following lines typically. You could promote an alternative theory or hypothesis for the stated one, because if you promote an alternative, you are then weakening the stated cause or whatever it may be. You may also, if it's based on a study or a survey, you might want to attack the way in which that study or survey was conducted. Or you may want to weaken the relevance of the evidence to the conclusion. Or you may just be providing new information of any sort. And so it's hard to say exactly which direction they'll take. A lot of this will be contextual, based on the particular example in the stimulus. But you want to be always thinking, how could this conclusion not be true, even if the evidence is? Like you were having a conversation with somebody.
Right. Okay.
So I would try to predict if possible. Then you scan through the choices looking for what you predicted, or at least something within the category of what you predicted. And if you don't find it, then of course be open to alternative ways they might have weakened it. There are often many ways to weaken an argument.
Right. And my last question is there such a thing as studying too much for the LSAT?
Yeah, there certainly is. I mean, you could certainly run the risk of burnout. If you're doing 6-7 hours a day for several days in a row, then yeah, that leads to burnout, which means basically your scores start plummeting with no ostensible reason, just because you're exhausted, you're tired, you've been doing too much, you're sick of it. And so you got to take frequent breaks.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I think that's all the questions that I had.
Great. Well, thanks for connecting with me, Eduardo. What would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
Definitely try to paraphrase more before like moving on to the questions. Really try to understand what I'm reading, and definitely my review process, adding the teaching to another a friend or family member that will help me really show me if I understand the question.
Excellent. Well, please keep in touch and let me know if you need anything at all as you move forward.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.